Hey everyone, it's Karen at Worldschooling Central and welcome back to Worldschooling Spotlight, where I introduce you to worldschooling families and share their stories with you. Today I have the privilege of introducing you to a very special family of four who took 2.5 years out of their life to travel the world with their children. At just 9 years of age, their son was struggling in the education system, diagnosed with ADHD. What happened next is truly incredible, so watch this to find out more. Meet the Bailey Giauque family, a family of four from the US who sold everything to take a 2.5-year worldschooling adventure through Southeast Asia and Europe. At a young age, their son was diagnosed with ADHD and a sensory processing disorder. Traditional learning in a public school was extremely challenging for him, for his parents and for the educators. The education system struggled to meet his needs. He was subjected to teasing from kids, was labelled a loser, and sadly, at just 9 years of age, little Julien had started to believe them. What happened next is nothing short of extraordinary. Once out of the education system, Julien came alive, and his mum and dad were fascinated to discover just how much he was actually learning. Julien's confidence grew, and when he returned to school 2.5 years later, he was a different kid. He knows he has incredible gifts and is making the most of them. In today's interview, Mum Cindy shares with us exactly how Julien benefited from not being a part of the school system, gives hints and tips on the logistics of making this lifestyle happen, and explains how her family travelled for 2.5 years on less than $100 a day. Now let's meet Cindy.
My name is Cindy Bailey Giauque, and my husband and I'm American, and my husband is from Switzerland. We have two children, a boy and a girl, and we took 2.5 years off to travel the world. When we started our 2.5-year trip around the world, our daughter was 3 and our son was 9. We got rid of all of our possessions from our California home, everything, and took off and traveled mostly to Southeast Asia, but also a little bit of Europe. We've been back in California for almost 3 years now. So we've been back a while and we're ready to move out again.
Cindy, why did you start world schooling?
My husband and I both have always loved to travel, and but we wanted something more than just a 2-week, even a month vacation. We wanted something that was more of a major dramatic lifestyle change because we were feeling so exhausted and run down by our day-to-day obligations that, and we weren't even able to spend time with our kids so much. It was a struggle for us to have our kids, and then now that they were here, we weren't able to spend time with them. So we wanted that quality time with our kids, and we wanted to travel, and we're like, let's do this, baby.
And where did your adventures take you?
We spent most of our time in Southeast Asia, and we loved it. We went to Thailand first, and we had been to Thailand before, so it wasn't, so eye-opening in the sense that it wasn't so new to us, but it's lovely. Everything about it is wonderful. And we stayed in Thailand for a month in Bangkok and then a month in Koh Samui. So we got a little bit of island life as well as city life. And really, a month is a good amount of time to really get into the culture and really, eat the street foods, meet the people, both local people as well as fellow expats. And then we spent about 3 months in Vietnam, which was fantastic. We'd never been to Vietnam. We weren't sure what to expect. And we traveled through all of Vietnam, from the south up to the north. We had all kinds of incredible adventures. My son, he hit, I think, every single water park and amusement park in all of Southeast Asia.
And how would you define world schooling?
World schooling to me is about traveling around the world and learning about the world around you and having that interactive relationship between your child and the world around you. So for me, it's not unschooling necessarily, and it's not one particular type of schooling, but it's just schooling on the road.
So once you decided to start, how did you prepare to start world schooling?
So we had decided we were going to do this trip, and then it was a matter of the logistics involved. We got rid of all our possessions, which we had a 4-bedroom house that we were renting in Silicon Valley. And we were very outdoorsy people. We are very outdoorsy people. So we had like, the garage was just full of all kinds of outdoor equipment, rock climbing, kayaking, scuba diving, it's like skis, everything. And it was kind of hard to get rid of everything. It became, some of it was really emotional to get rid of some of these things. And I didn't expect it to be. I thought, no, I live light. But it was challenging. So we got rid of everything. Well, the first thing is we had to make the decision. My husband had to be okay with saying no to his job and taking that time off. We saved money. So that's how we helped to fund our travels, is we saved a bunch of money. And also we relied on, my husband had some stocks with his company that he was able to periodically cash in as we traveled, and that helped us as well. We also put ourselves on a really tight budget, and we traveled to places where the standard of living was the cost of living was really low, like Southeast Asia, and we went to parts of Europe that were more inexpensive. So we were able to stick to a pretty tight budget and get a lot out of that budget. So that's how we decided how we were going to do it. And then it was the logistics. We got rid of all our possessions, and then we pulled the kids out of school. I did all the research about how to homeschool them and how we would do this on the road, the practicalities of that. And then we got on that plane and said, oh my God, I can't believe we're doing this. And I didn't even know if we would make it, because I remember that we flew out on the 28th of December. So just right after the Christmas holidays. And we were still getting rid of furniture like 2 days before and putting stuff. And, it was just, I told my husband, I don't know if we're going to make it on the plane. He said, we're making it on that plane. And we did it. And it was very exciting.
And what were your initial plans for educating the kids?
I was like, and I had it like all these, like, I put these schedules together and I put these little packets, and I'm like, okay, here kids, and we're going to, and within like literally a week, we're like, those were out, they were in the trash, because it's like, it's not going to work that way. We realized that because of the places we wanted to go and the things we wanted to see, that we would need to homeschool them. So I was overwhelmed with the research. So if you're starting, I empathize with that feeling of being overwhelmed. Like, what should I do? How should I do this? Whatever. But among the resources that are available out there are some that direct you with, like, by a step-by-step process. Like, first decide how you want to homeschool, how your kids are. Like my son learns very interactively and very kinetically. My daughter's more very academically minded and can handle more standardized learning. So you have to make those decisions for your kids. And then, I gathered all this information about how to homeschool, and then we hit the road with that information, and we had made decisions about, well, we're not going to go travel the world so our kids can sit at home at our bed and breakfast or Airbnb or wherever we are in the world and be studying all day. That would just defeat the whole purpose and the whole point. So we had, played it by ear the first month or two to see what kind of schedule worked for us as a family, in terms of the balance between exploring our environment and doing some schooling. And we found that, 2 days a week, about 3 hours on those 2 days, works fine. Sometimes we would add an extra day. Sometimes we'd be traveling and take out a day. But generally speaking, that was our structure. And that seemed to work really well for us. And then we discovered, there's this thing called Worldschooling. And look at that. There's a whole Facebook page with all this, and that was really wonderful. I learned about that towards the end of our trip. I wish I had learned about it at the beginning, because I would have made so many friends on the road through that. It would have been wonderful. But, there is this whole Worldschooling community, which is really fantastic. Fellow nomads who are like-minded and have the same values for themselves and their family and their kids, to be able to meet them and say, I'm going to be in Bali next week. Is there anybody there that, and to exchange useful information for traveling, but also to share in some kind of community for the kids, which is really great, and is something we were missing in some of our travels.
And can you tell us a little about how your kids learn?
The way we did it, because we were traveling really light, we didn't take any books, one notebook each, and we did everything via the internet on the computer. So the way we structured the learning is we had 2 or 3 days a week where we would focus on reading, writing, and math. And the rest of the time we would just learn from our environment. And that means, my son, for math, he was learning about currency exchanges, by telling the tuk-tuk drivers in Thailand how much, how much the baht means to the dollar, for example. And also in places like Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, we would visit the War Museum there and learn about the American-Vietnam War. Traveling has probably been the best thing that could have happened for our son. Our son has ADHD and sensory processing disorder. Particularly for him, he has visual processing disorder. He has others, but that's the main thing. So traditional learning in a public school is extremely challenging for him. And it's always been work, and it's been hard, and it's been hard for him, it's been hard for us, it's been hard for the educators. But seeing him learn on the road as we travel has been beautiful. I mean, he really blossomed and came alive, and we really got to understand how much he's actually learning, because it's hard to see through the mess of the challenges when we're at quote unquote home. But out on the road, when we see him exuberantly, talking to I keep going back to the tuk-tuk drivers because he loved them. He was fascinated by the tuk-tuks, and negotiating the price for the tuk-tuk to take us down to the zoo or whatever, and learning the languages too. In every country we learned some basic words, and our son would just use those words, and the fact that he can play a role in his education, and him not even knowing that this is education, that for him it's just life. And it's just life, but he's learning, has been amazing. For reading, for example, it's extremely difficult for him because his visual processing, he would listen to audiobooks, I would read to him. He could read with his, while he's standing on his head. We didn't care. He's not in a traditional classroom, and we would find, books that he would hopefully be really interested in. Everything on our iPads or phones. And then for math, we had a couple of computer programs that he would work on, because again, his style of learning, he needs the interactivity, and he couldn't do it would kill him to do a worksheet or to do standard type math. So doing it interactively with these they're like video games, but they're learning educational video games where he learns math, for example. And then writing is really challenging for him. So I would let him dictate. I would transcribe for him. And then we would practice handwriting, because the physical act of handwriting has always been difficult for him. So he would do those. So we do that about, I would say, 2 days a week for 3 hours. And the rest of the time, we just learn from the world around us, especially for things like history and culture and social studies. We pick topics, or my son would say, I want to learn about the solar system. We're like, great, okay, Dad, you're the science guy. He teaches about the solar system. And then for our daughter, she was very young. She's 3. And because she would see her brother reading, she would want to read. And so we started her on a program called Starfall. It's a software application, it's just a software application available over the internet. And it's, I think, $35 a year, so super cheap. And she basically taught herself how to read. It was just amazing through this interactive program. And so that was how we did it with our kids.
And how do your kids socialize?
The condo we were staying at in Bangkok had this whole group of moms that would meet at the pool every day at about 4 p.m. And my daughter had all these other 3-4-year-old girls to play with. She'd bring out, our kids were allowed 2 toys each. So one of the toys for my daughter was 1 Barbie. So she'd bring her Barbie and they'd get together and they'd play. And I'm still Facebook friends today with some of those moms. So it's really lasting friendships that were made on the road. We met this whole community of people that homeschool their kids. So we were automatically got rolled into this beautiful community where my kids got to do rock climbing with all these other kids because there were rock climbing classes that they put on, and somebody else was doing art. So we go to her studio and the kids would learn art. My son signed up for soccer. He got to play soccer. So we really got involved with the community there. That was great. My son is very, very social. He can walk up to any adult and just start a conversation. He can walk up to anyone and just start a conversation. And it's really beautiful to see. When we were traveling, he broke the ice for us, even just being this little kid who would walk right up to the tuk-tuk driver and say, we would like to go here. How much is it? And just really, like you were saying, confident, just being, and my daughter, who's extremely shy, she's learned to really open up. By the same token, they're also our kids are very intuitive. They can also sense someone to not trust.
And Cindy, what qualities do you think your children have developed because of world schooling?
I see things I was hoping to see, which is open-mindedness, compassion, tolerance. I guess those 3, which are huge. My kids are really adaptable. They can adapt to whatever situation comes up, whatever, whether it's within school or within the community or within whatever it is, they're very adaptable. And those are great qualities for our kids.
What are some of the benefits of world schooling?
My son's confidence is like, whoo, it went way up. In fact, by the time when we were leaving school for him, he was in the 3rd grade and he was calling himself a loser. He was calling himself because that's what he was getting from his environment at school is kids were making fun of him and like, you can't draw, you can't write. There was not any empathy for a kid like my son at his school from his peers. And he was starting, his self-esteem was just starting to take a dive. Well, during and after this, our trip, the 2+ years of traveling, totally opposite. His confidence is way up. He's thriving. He really feels, he really can feel that his gift in the world, like he has a gift and it's coming, it's here. And it's just an amazing thing to see, to watch them really grow and learn. They're getting so much more from their traveling and being on the road than they would ever get in a public classroom. And it's also by traveling, it's another way for them to, that was part of the mission for us in taking our kids on the road with us and traveling like this, is for our kids to learn that there's just more than one way to live your life. There are just so many possibilities that you don't have to live this way in this box, go to school, go to college, get married, get a house, there's no set track. You can define your life and define your lifestyle however you want it to be. And that, I think, has been really great for our kids, for their learning. When we finished our trip, we decided our kids would go back to school. For our daughter, it's one thing, but for our son, because he has learning issues, I was a little bit worried as a parent about how he was going to be, he was great. He just thrived. He had so much more confidence. And, the fact that his handwriting is totally horrible, because with what he has, it's hard for him. The physical act of writing is hard for him. I told him it doesn't matter as long as it's legible. Who cares what it looks like? And I've been telling him that, I told him that before, and he didn't quite believe me, but now he totally believes me. He's like, yeah, okay, that's not where my gift is. He gets that. He understands that that's not where his gift is. His gifts are, much more valuable than the physical act of writing. I mean, he has nonstop ideas, and that's more valuable. And the way he solves problems, we've been told this by educators, is that he totally thinks outside the box. And that's what they appreciate him for, is that when he goes to solve a problem, he solves it in a way that people just don't think to solve it that way. That's a gift, you know? So yeah, he's thrived upon coming back into the system.
And how has Worldschooling changed your relationships with each other?
Well, we got what we wanted in the sense that we were able to spend more time with our kids. So that, you know, quality time with our kids, which was really, for my husband and I, that was one of the main reasons we decided to do this. We hardly ever got to see our kids. We were so involved in our work lives, and kids were at school all the time. I mean, it's just really hard to find quality time with our kids. I mean, by the time they got home from school and all the duties were done, it was like 6 p.m. We have dinner, and then, you know, it's a little reading and then bed. So that's not how it went when we traveled, of course. So we really got to spend quality time with our kids, and our relationship with our kids, our bonds with our kids grew and grew and grew.
Did you face any challenges while you were world schooling?
Because of the way we were traveling, we were learning as we were going. We just winged it basically. And we were traveling what some people might say kind of slow, but what others might say kind of fast, because we were 3 months in Vietnam, for example, but we were constantly moving. We were in South Vietnam, and then we went to North Vietnam, and then we took the train down to Central Vietnam, and we were kind of all over the place. And because we were moving quite quickly, relatively quickly, we didn't get as involved in local communities as we could have or should have. And so we were spending 24/7 together. And I have to say, it was driving us a little crazy sometimes. So especially for my husband and I, our relationship, because it got a little strained here and there as well, because we weren't taking care of our own needs. We were just always bearing the needs of the entire group. So that put some strain on us. There were times like where, like in Vietnam, we were able to find a lot of those drop-off play areas for your kids. You could drop your kids off there all day for $2. And we did take advantage of that so that my husband and I could actually go on a date and be together without our kids. And we really needed that. It was challenging to spend so much time together, which is why we will do this again. And when we do it, we'll do it differently. We'll plan to slow down, and we'll plan on being more involved with the local communities in certain destinations, because that was the thing that was a little bit missing for us, is being more involved in local communities. And now, of course, we have this whole Worldschooling community on Facebook, which is really awesome. So it's likely we could find like-minded friends through that, other nomads with kids, and meet up and have a sense of community that way too. That was a somewhat of a missing piece for us that we can rectify for next time. But I do advise people who are starting this or getting into this to keep that in mind, because it depends on your personalities, your kids' personalities, your spouse's personalities, your partner's personalities. But you do need to make sure that your own needs get met, as well as taking care of the group, the family, and that the kids also have time that's totally for themselves, as well as being with their family, because being around us all the time wasn't great for them either. So we tried to get them out as much as possible.
I'd love you to share what it costs you to world school.
What's affordable to one person may not be affordable to another, but it also depends on how you like to travel, right? I think, we are the type of travelers who I consider ourselves very adventurous and very much interested in getting into the culture and understanding it and immersing ourselves. And we don't need 5-star hotels by any stretch. That's not what makes the adventure and travel for us exciting. So what kind of traveler you are also dictates what kind of budget you're going to have to create for yourselves. But I'll tell you, traveling around the world was so much cheaper than living in one place in the San Francisco Bay Area, where the cost of living is super high. So it's much cheaper. I mean, we were spending so much less money traveling than we are staying here. Our budget was about $90 a day for the whole family, about $90 a day. So about 100, some places we'd spend a little more and some places we'd spend a little less, but the $100 a day, just to round up a little, covered everything. It covered our travel, airplane, boat, whatever, train, whatever our travels were. It covered our lodging, and we used Airbnb almost primarily. It covered food. It covered all of our expenses. And it didn't mean that we didn't get to do anything, because we went scuba diving in Bali. We did a lot of activities that enrich the travel experience. And we're very outdoorsy, we're very adventure driven. So we would seek those adventures and we'd do them. We took motorcycles from Hue to Hoi An in Vietnam. It's a 5-hour ride on motorcycles with our kids. It was a blast. So we didn't hold back. But what we did to keep our budget in that area is, first of all, we traveled to places where our dollar would go far. So, and that's why I keep coming back to Southeast Asia. It was an amazing, enriching experience for so cheap. As you know, for $4 or $5 US, you could feed our family of 4 really well with amazing food. I mean, it's just, you're in heaven. It's just, fantastic. So we did that. Other tips and tricks that we did is that, or that we applied, is that we'd stay kind of outside of the main cities, and that made the prices cheaper. And also, if we could stay longer, it would be cheaper, because the Airbnbs, we noticed that if we stayed for 2 weeks or a month, the cost was exactly the same. So we do that.
And how do you guys fund your travels?
We chose not to work. We saved up our money and chose to just enjoy our time traveling. I did do one project. I'm a writer by trade, and I'm able to work from anywhere in the world with an internet connection. So that's really great. And I had a client base before I left. And I did do one project for one client while we were traveling. And then I decided I didn't want to do that again, because while my family we were in Hanoi, Vietnam, and while my family was out playing and exploring and doing things, I was stuck in the apartment for the entire month working on this project for this client. So I decided after that, I'm just going to chill and not work on this trip. But in a future trip, we'll probably travel slower and I will probably work. My husband, he has to work the type of work he does, he has to be at a location. It's very hard for him. He has a Silicon Valley engineering type job, but a type that he has to be on site. So for us to travel in the way that we wanted to, he would have to leave his job. So that was really scary for us to kind of give up that income for us. But we decided it would be worth it because we've always wanted to do something like that, and we knew we could. It's a matter of how we were going to structure it and what we were going to do. And we had early on made a decision that we would enjoy those travels and enjoy that time with our kids. So maybe not work. So for us, we just worked really hard to save money. We just worked on saving money. Don't buy anything anymore, and just put it all towards travel. And then we also had the benefit of my husband's job had stocks that we were able to cash as we traveled.
Cindy, looking back, what do you know now that you wish you'd known before you started?
One of the things I would say is don't worry, it's all going to work out. Like, don't stress. I stressed a lot about the homeschooling side, like the schooling side of things. How are we going to keep our kids educated while we do this? It all works out. At first I had this whole, schedule, and we're going to do it like this and like that. And within a week, I realized that's just not going to work. It's not going to work for my kids. It's not going to work for our family. It's not going to fit in with the way we're traveling. And it took my husband, who's like the relaxed one between us, to say, we'll figure it out. It's going to be fine. I mean, worst case scenario, they don't do any schooling at all and they'll still be fine. And it took me a while to warm up to that idea. And then, we found a routine that worked for us. And a balance between my husband's completely laid back and my, wanting to, we found a balance between those two extremes, and it worked out great. So yeah, relax. It's all going to work out fine.
And for anyone that wants to follow you online, where can we find you?
The best place to find us is through my travel blog, which is mylittlevagabonds.com. And we are also on Twitter as Little Vagabonds, and on Facebook as My Little Vagabonds, and on Instagram too.
And finally, what would you say to someone who is considering world schooling?
I highly recommend it for families that have kids who have challenges at learning. It depends on what the learning challenge is for your child, but I would be really open to taking a look at what this can do for you and your child, your child's relationship with the world and his or her relationship with you. All these things can change dramatically. I mean, even while we were on the road, we did do some reading, writing, and math, and we had some structured time for that a couple days a week. But our rules are so not the classroom rules. I mean, you don't want to travel the world and then just take a classroom with you. You want to create your own classroom, whatever that looks like for you and your family. And for our son, I mean, the fact that he could listen to audiobooks and he could, instead of actually reading, and the fact that we could read to him, the fact that he could, read and then run around the house, a few laps and then come back and read another page, or, there were all the rules where we could create whatever rules we wanted. We were writing our own rules for our son's education, and he thrived. And as I mentioned before, his doctor said that he can't think of anything better to do for this child than to take him on the road and do what we were doing. But if you're motivated, you can do this. You absolutely can do this. You have to first decide, yes, I'm going to do it. We're going to do it. And then 2, make some logistical plans on how you're going to get it done. And then just go for it. And once you're on that plane or boat or train, it's going to feel exhilarating. And let me tell you, as hard as it was to get rid of all our possessions, I didn't miss a thing. We didn't miss anything. Our kids were playing with straws and boxes. They didn't care that they didn't have their whole selection of toys. So it's all good. It's all good. It's a great learning experience. And the world has so much to teach us. It has so much to teach us, so many values, that I feel like, how can one not do this if they can find a place in their life to just pull it off?
To find out more about Cindy and her family, visit their website using the link below this video. If you like this video, we'd love you to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date whenever we release a new interview. To find out more about Worldschooling, visit www.worldschoolingcentral.com.